good afternoon, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior, fighting for your right just to be an American. It is December the 11th in the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios in the beautiful central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State, sitting before the great John Wayne desk. If you're watching the YouTube video, you'll see that there's a little bit different perspective. I am actually sitting in my office chair that I bought years ago when I was dispatching. It's an oversized, and it's really comfortable. So I spent not the whole weekend, but I spent most of the weekend trying to get this. I bought months ago. I bought a set of manual control legs to raise and lower the desk. And so it's it's still a work in progress. I rearranged my whole desk because I didn't like the setup, and I still don't particularly care for the setup that I have now because I can't get my monitors to where I want them. I need to get monitor stands so I can put one monitor on top of another, and that way I can clean up some more of my desk room. I'm actually the wire management on my desk is atrocious. It really is, and I got an idea that I might try, and I'm going to try it. If it works, I'll take some pictures of it, let you know how it all works, because I got wires still behind all my monitors going everywhere. I do apologize for Friday's show. I was supposed to get my propane bottles in, and I wasn't sure when they were going to come, and I didn't want to be sitting up here because they need me down there to hook, when the furnace is hooked up in case there's a leak or something like that. They need me down in the basement to fix the leak in my pipes. I'm hoping against hope that I put the gas pipes together correctly, so when they pressure test it, there will not be any leaks. So I am hopeful for that. And once I get that done, which I had to reschedule for Friday. They got here about 12:30, and he spent about half an hour, 45 minutes here, taking some information down, calling back and forth to his boss. Long story short, he didn't bring the right pipe to hook into my system that I have set up. Basically, no, I told him that I'm hooking in a 55,000 BTU gas combi condensing boiler plus my gas stove, and nobody told him that. They said that I was hooking up a gas furnace, didn't tell them the size, and this was the actual tech that normally does all this work. The two guys that were there before, they helped put tanks in and run some lines, but they didn't really know what was going on. So they did not have the proper line with them to get the volume of gas I needed for my propane stove. So I'm just pulling my hair out, and I had to order another half a load of wood to get us through to Wednesday, and he guaranteed me they'd be here Wednesday. Not sure what time. Hopefully, depending on what time they're going to do it, I might do the show Wednesday earlier if they're supposed to come right after lunch or something like that. So I might do the show a little bit earlier Wednesday, or if they're supposed to be around lunch, I might do it a little bit later. And by the time I got everything done, and I was so stressed out because they weren't going to put the bottles in and hook my furnace up, I was in a lot of pain Friday, so I just couldn't do the show. I was going to do it later. I just ended up canceling the show altogether. So we're here today doing the show a little bit late because I was having some issues with hooking 3 computers up to the soundboard, and I finally just decided my main computer that I do most of my work on, I do not need the sound coming out of that. Well, I do have the sound coming out, but I do not need sound coming from the soundboard back into my main computer because I don't really do any recording on that. I have my streaming computer I do recording on, and so I was messing around getting all that kind of stuff straightened around. So hopefully the volumes and everything on today's show are a little bit better for you. Hopefully I'm not blowing your ears out, and I'm just checking to make sure that we're recording very well over here at the on my Audacity. And so I will be getting some pictures out. I don't have everything set the way I want to have everything set. I'm still rethinking some of the things that I'm doing here with my desk. Like I said, I put these legs on. I'm sitting now, but I can also crank it up and stand and do some production work, which I was doing earlier today after I finished up getting everything hooked up and troubleshooting some of the stuff I had wrong. I still can't get my, it's called eSword. It's a Bible program that I have loaded into my main computer. I still can't get that working. I don't know why it won't come up. It says it's coming up and won't come up. So I got to check on that. Try to get it open. Maybe restart my computer one more time to get that going. But I just couldn't do it. The 14th, Wednesday or Thursday, is coming up quickly. I'm not going to talk about net neutrality that much. I might mention it in passing because I've been watching videos, and a lot of the videos I've been watching on YouTube, they're being put out by millennials, and there's nothing wrong with millennials for the most part. I do have some qualms with some of the millennials I've worked with as far as their work ethic, whether they were driving truck or working in a door plant. They have a very bad work ethic, a very bad attitude about work. I've also noticed that millennials, and I have a story in here, if I get to it today, I have a story from Benjamin Powell over at the Foundation for Economic Education. It's called Millennials Get It Wrong About Socialism. And there's a lot of millennials in America today. I'll just stick with America, but they're also in Britain and Europe. There's a lot of millennials who don't understand the dangers of socialism, an authoritarian system, which is an authoritarian governmental system and economic system. I was watching some millennials talking about net neutrality and how wonderful the regulations are. And the one guy, and I'm doing some research on this, and I saved the videos. This one gentleman, and I'll talk more about this tomorrow, was talking about corporate fascism. And he was saying that's something, outside of government, that the corporations are acting fascist. And I'm like, those two terms don't go together, corporate fascism. Because fascism is a government ideology and an economic ideology. Basically, the most basic tenets of fascism, without going on to Hitler and the Nazis and stuff like that, are government regulations controlling corporations and businesses, but not owning the means of production. Okay, that actually, the next step in authoritarianism is socialism, where they actually regulate the businesses and also owns the means of production. And then from there it goes straight into communism, where they own everything. They own your farm, they own the people, they own all the productivity. They try to make everybody equal, but even in a communistic society, they're not equal. And because there's the ruling class in all these societies, in fascism, in socialism, and in communism, there's a ruling class in there. But to call corporations fascist is to misunderstand what fascism is. You do not have to deal with corporations. Now, I know the argument, well, sometimes there's only one internet provider in our community, in our city. Well, the reason why there's only one, and my limited research, and I'm not that I'm going to quit doing it altogether, but I pretty much stopped after I've looked into some towns that have only one internet provider, and they pretty much are buying off the politicians, guaranteeing them so much money, or whatever guarantees they give them, to have that monopoly at the local level, at what they call the last mile level. Net neutrality is not going to take care of that. Net neutrality is not going to break up that monopoly. All net neutrality is going to do, and all these millennials in the tech industry out there, and these techies out there, and this one I was watching was actually the Humanist radio, I believe it's called. And like I said, I'll have more about this tomorrow. But like I said, they get things wrong, and like I said, net neutrality is not going to take care of that last mile monopoly, and all it's going to do is make that company wealthy by not having any competition. And so what if they can't throttle websites, or if they can't charge more for streaming videos that use more bandwidth and resources like that? And that's another thing I just don't understand why younger folks don't get that concept. You know, that it's not just routers, it's servers and switches, and you know, they have to have a room, an environmentally controlled room, and that costs money, electricity, the building, the maintenance and everything on the building, the whole 9 yards. And it just, like I said, it seems strange to me that they don't even get that concept, that the more bandwidth that is being used, the more servers they have to put on, and the more, you know, it's not like one big router, it goes through one router. And I'd love to, I haven't done this yet, but we have Service Electric cable television. They deliver television, VoIP, and cable internet. And actually, over the weekend, I was thinking about shooting them an email, because I used to work for them back through a subcontractor. I used to help them rebuild their a couple towns' systems around here while I was getting my sugar under control, so I get back into driving truck, and just see if I can go in and videotape their operation, you know, as far as you know, servers, and just sort of walk me through the whole thing from, you know, the time that you know, they hook into the IXP to the time that it hooks into your house, you know. And I know the cable end of it, you know, where the fiber optics come out across the cables, and then I go up on the ladder and I hook into the transfer boxes from fiber optic into copper, so it gets into your home, because they haven't got fiber optic down that flexible yet. But anyway, I'd love to do that. I might get the opportunity to do that. I'd love to do that, you know, and ask them questions about, you know, scaling and stuff like that. You know, if more internet users get on there and use, do more servers have to come on, you know, routers, you know, I want to get the whole scoop, and I want to get it from somebody that actually does it, and not just off the internet. So I titled the show today because it seems to me the ones that are really, really pushing for government regulations, I don't care what industry it is, are these millennials, and they happen to glob onto this ideology of humanism. And humanism, in my book, and this is, maybe I'm wrong about this, but when I look at humanism, it's an umbrella term for me. You know, it covers atheism, because humanism, you know, and the skeptical society and everything, like I said, I put them all under humanism. Maybe, you know, people might disagree with that. I shouldn't do that. However, I'm going to do it, you know, tough noogies, because they all have one thing in common: humanism, skepticism, atheists, and any other groups you want to put in there. And I'll even put in Islamists in this group of humanism, because they believe in a God, a little g God, Allah, but they don't believe in the God, big G, Jehovah. And this is the common thread across the whole thing. And they are most humanists I've run into are very authoritative. They're just like, and this whole thing with the transgender community, the LGBTQ community, again, you know, they most of them that I've listened to, with the exception of a couple of them, but their actions and their words speak opposite to what they're saying. Most of them are either at the most Gnostic, or at the least Gnostic, or, you know, atheists at the extreme, where they don't believe that there is a God, and they're going to live their life the way they want to live it. And for the most part, it's been my experience that humanists get most things wrong. Whether we're talking about the economy, whether we're talking about government, whether we're talking about faith, whether we're talking about God, whether we're talking about the internet. There's a video I was watching. I want to take a couple pieces out of that video and make a response video. Now that I've got my chair sitting here, and I'm able to work longer, because I'm not I'm just more comfortable. I'm going to start getting some of these response videos up I've been wanting to do. I got to sit down and script them and then go ahead and shoot them and everything. But there's a lot of things in a lot of these videos that they get wrong. The main thing is that government regulation is going to keep the internet free. And I tackled this last week, or tried to anyway. Government regulation makes nothing free. It's government regulation. And to call corporations fascist is to not know what capitalism is or not know what corporations are. I'm sorry to tell you. You don't know. You can't put those two words together because a corporation cannot force you to buy anything. Yes, okay, you may have one internet provider in your town. And so there's no competition. You gotta, if you go on the internet, you gotta buy off of them, which is a misnomer. I mean, you do have most bigger towns that I know of, at least out here in the central Susquehanna Valley, Sunbury, Elysburg, they both have Fios from Verizon. Now, is it as fast as cable internet? No. Should it be? Yeah, I think it should be. I mean, the telephone companies are talking about fiber optic, having fiber optic and stuff, but I don't see them laying the lines out in the areas anyway for their fiber optic as far as their cable, their broadband internet. But there are choices. Granted, may not be as good as cable internet, which I think cable internet's pretty good. And my cable internet provider is the only one that I can get a hold of in this area. And so they have a monopoly here, and I think that should be broke up. I don't think these towns should be creating these government-created monopolies, which again is through regulation. Honestly, I think at the state level, I think the state legislatures need to work on this to pass state laws saying that these towns cannot create monopolies. And the only true monopolies that ever existed were government created. And so in the vast world of corporations, putting fascism after corporations is just, you're not making any sense. Because, and again, let's get away from cable internet, okay? We live our lives buying things off of corporations all the time, whether it's our groceries, our clothes, our shoes, our cars, our tires, our gasoline. And just about anything you buy is, unless it's a mom and pop restaurant or something like that they're not incorporated, you're buying from a corporation. But most corporations have competition. And most of these, like I said, we're going to get into some of these stories tomorrow, but there's a lot of the so-called, violations of net neutrality. And these guys talking about, well, we've always had net neutrality. It may be in spirit, but not in word. Because net neutrality really was something that only came to prominence, the term, during the Obama administration. And most of the problems were happening with the cell phone companies. And you know what? I watch commercials every day when I watch Hulu. And guess what? These cell phone companies are competing against each other. They used to try to throttle things, and now they don't. They don't limit. They have unlimited broadband. I've had unlimited broadband on my Boost Mobile for years. And the big boys are just now catching up. Granted, I don't use a lot of bandwidth on my cell phone, my smartphone. I do searches if I have to, but I'm not a person that's going to sit there on my cell phone and do Google searches and watch videos or Hulu on my cell phone all the time. I mean, I got better things to do with my time. And I save my TV watching for I'm sitting down after I've completed my work day and got everything done. So again, these humanists out there, and a lot of these humanists are really for authoritative government because, and I lump a lot of people in these groups under the umbrella of humanism, because if you don't agree with them, that's okay. They're going to go to the government and get laws to force you to do what they want you to do. And that is being fascist. That is being authoritarian. as a whole. So to say, and this is the ridiculous, to say that government regulation is going to keep the internet open and free is a fallacy, and it's foolishness to believe in that altogether. Okay, let's see here. I know I rambled on there for just a little bit there, but I had to, folks. The official drink of the Dan Clemens Show is Rocky Mountain High Brand. Matter of fact, I'm drinking that right now. I'm drinking the, let me back up here. I'm drinking the mango energy drink. I only had 1 cup of coffee this morning. I'm drinking this instead of my second cup of coffee. It has 100 milligrams of hemp seed extract in it, and it seems to help me with my pain and my fibromyalgia, which is a good thing. It has ginseng in it, and the caffeine, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, guarana, I believe is how it's pronounced. They have other flavors and everything, and full disclosure, I do own some stock in this company. It's a penny stock, but I still own stock in it. Hopefully someday it might quit being a penny stock and get up in them dollar ranges as part of my retirement portfolio. Today's daily Bible reading comes from the epistle to the Colossians, chapter 1, verses 21 through 23. And you, who were once alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled in the body of his flesh through death to present you holy and blameless and above reproach in his sight. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you heard, which was preached to every creature under heaven, which I, Paul, became a minister. Paul's saying it to the Gentiles, you were once alienated from God, and enemies in your mind by wicked works, but yet he has reconciled you. Jesus Christ has reconciled you through his shed blood. And the only way you access that shed blood is through baptism. And Paul is, telling them, you were once alienated, but now you're not, because of the work that Jesus Christ actually did. The quote meal today comes from William James. The greatest use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. Where's your treasure? We talk about this a lot in this program in some scriptures. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I'm trying to put my treasure up in heaven, because that's where I want to be after I die. I want to be in heaven, and that's where I'm trying to put my treasure up there. Today's short Bible lesson comes from Jeff Miller. He's a PhD over at apologeticspress.org, and it's a lengthy article because they reference everything, and they give you every single reference. So it's like 13 pages long, but a lot of those references over there. Let me just go over and see where that actually starts. But it's entitled Atheist Designed Admissions. They're actually going through and listing these prominent atheists in the world who admit that there is design. There's no other way it could be designed. And so they go down. The end notes actually start on page 10. So there's 3 pages of end notes, where they actually give you the references they're running. And a lot of these articles are very, very good over here at Apologetics Press. And this is one of the sites I try to guide people to, especially skeptics, humanists, atheists, and stuff, folks that don't believe in evidences. These folks over at Apologetics Press do yeoman's work in getting the truth out about God and about evidences that coincide with God. And it amazes me. I've sent dozens of people over this website, and it amazes me how they, for the most part, because I'll ask, we're getting to this, well, I read that. And I'll start asking them some questions about it, and they won't answer them, or they get it wrong, and I'm like, you really, I think in my mind, you really didn't read this. You didn't really look at the evidence people are bringing up, because they're skeptics. They're skeptical of the evidence that people might have that would confirm, I don't say might, they do have, that would confirm that there is a God, and Jesus Christ was real. And so my first go-to source when it comes to Christian apologetics or evidences is Apologetics Press, and these guys do a fantastic job. I encourage you to go over and look at Apologetics Press, and they like I said, they have audios, or actually DVDs. I don't think they have podcasts anymore, because I think they put everything on DVDs, but they have a lot of useful information that you can glean information from. Right? At least go over and give them a shot. At least go over and see what they have to say. Don't just go over there and look at it, and because you're a skeptic, you're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to actually look into it to see if what I was telling you was the truth, see if what they were telling you is the truth. I honestly believe people, humanists and skeptics, are very afraid of the truth. They're really afraid of the truth. I'm looking here. I was trying to get this other article up, and I don't know why it's not popping up. Oh, well, I got all my articles except this one. Let me see. Figures. The one I wanted to not really talk about, I got the title of the article and everything. Well, let's get into this real quick here. I know some people, this is old news to some folks, but it's still an ongoing thing here. That this morning there was a terrorist attack in Times Square, New York City, and that's exactly what they're calling it. And this is a CNS News article by Susan Jones, posted today. New York City police confirmed terror-related incident at Times Square. At 7:20 Monday morning, with rush hour in full swing in New York City, police say 27-year-old Akayed Ullah detonated an improvised low-tech explosive device that was strapped to his body. He intentionally detonated a device in an underground walkway connecting several subway lines near the Port Authority bus terminal in Times Square. The suspect, reportedly a Bangladeshi national, and several bystanders suffered minor injuries, police said at a mid-morning news briefing. New York Police Commissioner James O'Neill called it a terrorist-related incident. He said Akayed was taken to the hospital in police custody. Mayor Bill de Blasio said the idea of attacks on New York City subway are incredibly unsettling. Let's be also clear, this was an attempted terrorist attack. Thank God the perpetrator did not achieve his ultimate goals, the mayor said. At this point in time, we all know all we know is of one individual who, thank God, was unsuccessful in his aims. Police are asking anyone with information about the suspect to call the New York City terrorist hotline. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said it's no surprise that New York remains a target by many people who want to make a statement against democracy and against freedom. And Cuomo noted that with the internet, anyone can download garbage and vileness on how to assemble explosives. Let me stop the reading there too. When I was in the Army National Guard, we were taught how to make improvised explosives. What they called it, field expediency. There's a lot of common items you can use to either cause a distraction or cause damage that we were taught. This is basic information that puts out in the military. So I imagine, yeah, you can get a lot of vile stuff off the internet, but don't disregard the training camp some of these terrorists actually attend and go to. Don't disregard those at all. And that is, and I'll read on here, and that is the reality that we live with, the governor said. He added that the counter reality is that this is New York, and we all pitch together, and we are savvy people, and we keep our eyes open, and that's what see something, say something is all about, and we have the best law enforcement on the globe. The last thing I want this guy to hear is you have the right to remain silent, Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News several hours after the attack. He should be held as an enemy combatant. I want to hold him under the law of war and gather intelligence. What's your opinion about that? You know, especially, I don't particularly care for Lindsey Graham or John McCain for that matter, but, you know, do you agree with them? Do you think that's where we should be with all this? You know, treat him as an enemy combatant. Depends, and honestly, folks, it depends on his immigration status. Did he become a naturalized citizen, or is he still over here on a visa? You know, there's a lot of questions that still haven't been answered about this, and it's an ongoing investigation. But I just want to put my 2 cents worth in here. You know, that's, you know, New York City's a target, and you know, and I gotta say, with a mayor like Mayor De Blasio, I fear for. I got cousins twice removed that are living in New York City, and I fear for them living in New York City. I used to drive truck in New York City. I used to deliver and pick up goods, mostly deliver goods in New York City, all over the 5 boroughs, including Manhattan. Not a lot in Manhattan, but I did back in the day. I took down to the Manhattan meat market a couple times. You know, it's a dangerous city without terrorists. And so, you know, again, this is what something is going. It's ongoing. We'll probably have more information about this story tomorrow. The other one I wanted to get into real quick here. Let me get a drink here. Oh man, Rocky Mountain High Brand can't do any better than that, folks. You really can't. All right, Daily Signal has a story out by Emily Kao. 4 highlights from Christian Baker's wedding cake case at the Supreme Court. Now, we talked about this last Thursday about some of the questions, the different questions that were being asked. But now, this is a good article here. I encourage you to go to thedanclemenshow.com and read this. Now, real quick, I just remembered this. I was having issues getting onto my website, thedanclemenshow.com, last week, and I finally got a hold of the tech folks on the chat. And this is nothing. That's why I love Bluehost. I got a hold of the tech folks at Bluehost. That's who's hosting my website. So I'm having I can't get on my website. It's been a couple days. I've been trying to get on. Can't do it. And I had a few minutes on Thursday afternoon. So I got a hold of them on chat. And it was like 10 minutes later, and they had a fix. I said, well, what was the problem? Well, it was something on their end that had went wrong, and they were having issues with a lot of websites with this. There's some kind of encoding that they had wrong, but they fixed it. I was back up in a couple minutes. It was great. Like I said, I love Bluehost, and they're one of my affiliate marketers on the Dan Clement Show too. So that's on there. I got to finish up getting a couple last week shows put on there, and I'll have them done this afternoon or this evening and that. But these will be over there too, and as well as the Thursday shows over at DanClementShow.com. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments on Tuesday in a closely watched case dealing with free speech, religious liberty, and same-sex marriage. Specifically, the justice considered whether the state of Colorado can force Jack Phillips, a Christian baker, to create a custom cake for a same-sex wedding against his deeply held religious beliefs. Attorneys for Phillips clearly explain that he seeks to exercise his freedom only to speak messages that he agrees with, while still welcoming all customers into his store. The First Amendment's free speech and religious liberty clauses protect his freedoms to do just that. It is in a lengthy and charged oral arguments. The 9 justices wrestled with how Americans who hold different views on marriage and are post Obergefell society can continue to live with each other in mutual respect. Here are some highlights of the argument. 1, mutual tolerance is essential in the free society, and this is the one that is being stomped in the mud the most in American society today. This is mutual tolerance. If I am intolerant of somebody's views, personally me, I'm not going to go to the law like they did up in Canada and get a law, like a hate speech law, that says you can't say that or you can't believe that. And just because I don't agree with your views doesn't mean I'm not tolerant of your views. Like I said, I don't want to go out and string you up or anything like that. I don't want the government to come and take care of you. I don't want a lynch mob or anything else coming to take care of you. I want to sit down. If we have different views and you want to sit down and talk about it and try to change my mind, and I love Steven Crowder. He has a series he's doing that, Change My Mind, about different issues. You're welcome to come and try to change my mind. I'm not that entrenched where if someone doesn't bring forth a logical, truthful, fact-filled argument that that I may not be willing to change my mind. But I'm willing to sit down and talk about it. The problem I found, and this goes back to the humanist thing, some of my most ardent opposition on Facebook are part of the humanist movement, humanist ethical societies, stuff like that. Still, humanist is an umbrella term that I'm using. They are some of the most intolerant people that I've ever ran into. If I don't agree with their views and I put forth my Christian views, I'm intolerant. I'm forcing my views on them, my Christian views on them. And I'm like, how? I'm just putting out my views. If you want to accept them and follow them, fine. I'll help you. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm not going to stop you. I still may talk about what I believe to be the truth about an issue, whether it's about religion or faith, politics, economics, or anything. I still, until somebody can prove me wrong. And this is the problem. Most of my detractors out there on social media, they never try to prove me wrong. They put forth talking points and their narrative in an echo chamber, and any ideas outside of the norm, what they consider to be the norm, should not be tolerated. So in my opinion, the intolerance is on the humanist side of the equation. These folks that believe in ethical humanist society. I mean, I think ethical humanism, I think those are another set of terms that really don't belong. That if they really got down the nuts and bolts of what humanism is, ethics have nothing to do with it. But that's the one point. Mutual tolerance is essential to a free society. Like I said, I'm against gay marriage because of my deeply held religious beliefs. But again, I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to advocate for violence, whether it's from the public at large or from the government, to change your mind about things. I'll just tell you what the Bible says, what God says about marriage, and that's the beliefs I hold, and I will not participate in it. And quite honestly, I don't recognize those unions, the same-sex marriage unions, as a marriage, because it's not what the Bible says. Now, is that intolerant? No, it's not intolerant. Those are my views, and I'm not forcing them on somebody else. And you can't force me to accept your way of life or your thinking. So tolerance is a two-way street. And too many times in our society, tolerance is not a two-way street. It's a one-way street. And if you don't agree with what their group think is, then you're the intolerant one, and you need to be punished, and you need to be silenced. I had a lady on Facebook, one of my detractors on Facebook, told me that it was unconstitutional for me as a Christian to talk about the Constitution. I had to laugh at that, folks. I really did. I really laughed at that. Number 2, compelled speech for everyone. I'm going to read a little bit on this one. The irony of the comparison of Phillips to a Nazi is that both the ACLU lawyers representing the gay couple, David Cole, and the Colorado Solicitor General admitted the state could rightfully force cake artists to celebrate the racist ideas of white supremacy, or one of the most infamous events in world history, the Holocaust. At one point, Justice Breyer followed up on a question from Justice Neil Gorsuch about whether a cake artist could be forced to create a cross-shaped cake for a religious group that shared the beliefs of the KKK. Cole responded that if the cake artist did so for the Red Cross, then yes, the artist would have to do so for a religious group as well. Similarly, Justice Samuel Alito asked Colorado if a cake artist who created a cake with words celebrating November 9th for someone's anniversary, would that also be forced to create the same cake to celebrate November 9th, 1938? On this infamous night, known as Kristallnacht, the Nazis launched their program against Jews by burning over 1,000 synagogues and damaging more than 7,000 Jewish businesses. In the exchange with Alito, the Colorado Solicitor General said that cake artists could not discriminate on the basis of identity, but could discriminate on the basis of message. Gorsuch later responded saying that's exactly what Phillips has argued. 3, the disagreement does not equal discrimination. We'll stick with the cake baker here. He doesn't care if they come in and buy. He doesn't discriminate against folks that come in and buy his goods on a daily basis, because he's not endorsing, and this is the strange part about this, and in all my reading about this, I haven't heard too many comments on this. There's a lot of videos out there that if you, Roaming Millennial did one. She interviewed Robert Spencer. And so since she interviewed Robert Spencer and shared his ideas on her show, she's guilty by association. She's a white supremacist by association. Now that's about the biggest load of hogwash I've ever heard in my life. That you're guilty by association, right? But this is how authoritarians think. This is how the LGBT community thinks. This is how, this whole case here. And the funny thing is, if they want to talk about guilty by association, what about the gay people? And I don't know if, I know they don't keep a record of it because they don't ask them when they come in, are you gay, straight, whatever, what's your beliefs before I sell you something. They're happy to sell the general public. And if you happen to be gay and you go to that bakery to buy your goods under some of this reasoning that I've been reading on this case at the Supreme Court, that you are supporting the baker's religious beliefs. Guilty by association. You create profit for this cake baker, this baker, by buying his goods at his store. So aren't you supporting him? And if you're supporting him monetarily, aren't you guilty by association because you do go to a store and frequent it? But disagreement does not equal discrimination. And I was reading an article over the weekend. I was just glancing at it. And I think I might try to find it. I was saving stories to my email and didn't even go into my email because I had most of this information already saved for my Friday show that I'm doing today. But I was reading an article, and I'll try to get it to you tomorrow. Some wisecracker out there from this, what's this guy's name? Mr. Cook. David Cole. From where they lived to where they bought or asked the cake baker to get a cake, they passed a dozen or so bake shops, and they called these bake shops, and they'd be more than happy to bake a cake for a gay couple for a same-sex wedding. And he passed so many of this David Cole doesn't even live in the same town, but passed all these other bakers to get to this one, which is highly suspicious to me. It really is. It's like the cake baker, and I do believe this, they were targeted by this gay couple, just for this. So just because you disagree with somebody's beliefs and you do not want to participate, it's just like I would go report on it, but I wouldn't participate in a white supremacist or KKK rally or an LGBT rally or anything like that. I'd go report on it, but I wouldn't participate in it. And just because I'm not participating in it doesn't mean it's discrimination. If I don't agree with your ideas, I'm not discriminating against you. I'm discriminating against your ideas. Because skin color is one thing. You can't help the skin color, the color of your skin when you're born, anything, or where you were born, things like that. You can't help that. It is what it is. and to discriminate against things that people just cannot do anything about, whether they're male or female, young or old, black, white, Native American Indian, from India, from the Far East, Japan, China, stuff. That kind of discrimination is wrong, but discriminating against ideas, that's not discriminating. That's disagreement. And that's another point that they brought up about that. And then the fourth point, orthodoxy determined by the state. And this one is where we really get into some problems with this if it goes the other way. Finally, the oral arguments revealed the scope of how far the state of Colorado was willing to go to impose its views of marriage on citizens. In one line of questioning from Roberts, Colorado admitted that it would force Catholic legal services to provide a same-sex couple with legal services related to their wedding, even if it violates Catholic teachings on marriage. And in questioning from Alito, the ACLU answered that the state could force a Christian college whose creed opposes same-sex marriage to perform a same-sex wedding in its chapel. Okay, so it's orthodoxy determined. So the state's determining all this. This is what Colorado wants. Like many Americans, Phillips seeks to work in a manner consistent with his deeply held religious beliefs, or the lack thereof. I'm reading into it, or not. Okay, including on marriage. In order to follow his conscience, he has turned down requests for cakes that contain messages expressing certain ideas: Halloween, divorce, anti-American themes, and even anti-gay messages. What he has never done is turn away anyone because of who they are. The Supreme Court should uphold the right of all Americans to work according to their religious beliefs and to be free from government intrusion that would force them to speak messages in violation of their deeply held beliefs. After its decision in Roe v. Wade, the court respected the freedoms of Americans on both sides of the abortion debate. It rejected the argument that opposition to abortion is rooted in animus towards women because it recognizes that there are many other rational reasons why people oppose abortion. This is no different. There are many Americans who support traditional marriage for reasons that have nothing to do with animus towards gays. All Americans will benefit when free speech and religious liberty are robustly protected. The court's decision in Masterpiece Cake Shop can help foster more civil dialogue on marriage so that we can all live according to our consciences in peace with one another. And folks, that last one, that's the one that really scares me, the orthodoxy determined by the state. The state of Colorado, if it gets its way, will force religious entities to do things that go against their beliefs. And just put this what if out there. What if it goes Colorado's way? I should be able to go to a Muslim bakery and have them make a cake with a pro-Christian message on it, according to Colorado. They don't talk about it here, but that's the implications if the freedom of speech and religion is not protected in this Masterpiece Cake Shop. If it goes the other way, then everybody. I mean, this applies to every bake shop, no matter what your religious affiliation is, your deeply held beliefs. If you're an atheist that owns a bake shop, and in order to do specialty cakes, you don't want to do pro-Christian, or you don't want to say God's alive or Jesus is alive on the cake for celebration of whatever, I believe that's your right to refuse to do that. But, like I said, if this goes against Masterpiece Cake Shop, if I walk into an atheist cake shop and they say, no, we're not going to do that, they're in trouble with the law. The state has just defined the orthodoxy. And so this has far-reaching ramifications throughout the country. It has far-reaching, it's going to have a far-reaching effect if this goes, and I think the wrong way would rule against Masterpiece Cake Shop. I think the Supreme Court and the questions that are coming out from both sides of the court I do believe that I don't think it's going to be a 5-4 ruling, although I could be wrong. I don't think it's going to be unanimous, but I don't think it's going to be 5-4 ruling. I think that the Supreme Court is going to rule. This is my ardent hope. They're going to rule correctly on this, because if they, like I said, if they don't, the ramifications are just horrible to even contemplate. They really, really are. All right. The next one I'm getting into is, and this happens every year, folks. I want to bring this up early and get it out of the way. This is from Stoyan Zayamov, Christian Post reporter over at the Christian Post. This was posted on December 1st of this year. American atheists call birth of Jesus Christ fake news and billboards attacking Christmas. Now, the Freedom from Religion Foundation is part of this group, that are, same ideas. Again, another umbrella type term. Every year it seems like someone comes out from the atheist side of things and puts these type of things up. Just skip church, it's all fake news. And one of the, like I said, when I said in my dialogue, there's a lot of things that humanists and skeptics and atheists and that they just refuse to believe. No matter how much evidence you bring up to it, they just refuse to believe it. Jesus Christ was real. A lot of people saw the miracles that he performed. Again, how do you explain a blind man that was blind from birth? His parents confirmed it. Everybody knew, all his friends in the community seemed to know that this guy was blind, but Jesus, through a miracle, gave his sight back. He healed him. He didn't give it back, he just gave him sight. He never had sight from the story in the Bible. Have all these witnesses that saw this. Matter of fact, you had the Sanhedrin in the temple threatening to throw his folks out of the synagogue because they wouldn't answer their questions about it. They kept telling him, he's an adult, ask him. And he already told them. And he told them again, he said, why do you want to know again? Do you want to become his disciple? And it was a huge brouhaha about that with the Sanhedrin. There's many other miracles that Jesus Christ performed. And he performed them in the open. He performed them in the open. The raising of Lazarus from the dead. Now, I've read skeptical articles and stuff like that about that, where, well, the coolness of the tomb, kept his temperature to a certain degree, and he really wasn't dead. Folks, as far back as human history goes, clear back to Adam and Eve, they knew what dead was. They could tell if somebody was dead. Okay? And especially if they didn't embalm them back then, but you wrapped them in cloth and put spices on stuff like that, and that was including your head. I don't know about you, but have you ever had gauze, wet gauze put over your face? Hard to breathe through that. But people saw Lazarus dead. They buried him. It'd been days, like 4 days, and Jesus came and raised him from the dead. Turned water into wine. Healed I don't know how many people, cast out I don't know how many spirits in front of witnesses, especially the 12 apostles. And I know one was to betray him, and they had to choose another apostle, and then after that came Paul. And one of the requirements of an apostle was that they had to be in the company of Jesus Christ for the ministry. And I believe as a devout Jew as Paul was, that he was about investigating Jesus Christ and his disciples, and he was there a lot when Jesus was teaching. Probably in the background. I don't have book, chapter, and verse on that, but just knowing what we know about Paul, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. And the miracles of the apostles weren't done in private, folks. They absolutely were not done in private. They were done before witnesses. And again, the Roman authorities were very good about record keeping. And in I think it was Josephus, the Roman historian Josephus, talks about Jesus Christ, talks about him being a historical figure, and talks about everything that befell him, the crucifixion and everything like that. So, again, I just don't see where the atheist arguments come forward and not knock down all this evidence. It just, and this is just another attempt to squash the idea that there ever was a Jesus Christ. I don't know what to do with them. If folks are that ardent in their beliefs against something, it's hard to dissuade them of that. And you can only do so much. You can put the information out to them, and if they don't want to take it, they don't want to take it. If they want to live in their echo chamber, you can't bring them out of their echo chamber. You just can't. So this article, link to it's going to be up there. American Atheists Call Birth of Jesus Christ fake news in billboards attacking Christmas. And again, I'm not dogmatic about Christmas. I'm not going to say you have to celebrate Christmas as the birth of Jesus Christ, because the Bible doesn't tell us to do that. Now, as a society, we set aside mainly the world, but we set aside December 25th to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, I don't think you're sinning if you do celebrate it, and I don't think you're sinning if you don't celebrate it. So I'm not dogmatic about it. Just same way with Easter. I don't think you're sinning if you celebrate Easter, but I don't think you're sinning if you don't. We're not commanded to celebrate Easter. We're commanded to partake of the Lord's Supper every first day of the week to recognize the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's that memorial feast that we're supposed to be involved with. So I just wanted to make you aware of this. And the other thing that I thought was, I couldn't bring the article up, but the 2018 Global Atheist Convention has been canceled. Substantially lower ticket sales was given as a reason. The boring nature of the atheist conference was not mentioned. This is by Jeremiah Traeger over examiningatheism.blogpost.com. And then there's another one after that also. Atheist activist Seth Andrews keeps seeing reports on social media and the media that the atheist movement is dying. And there's a couple, I follow some on Facebook, and this blog post, I've read these before, and he's pretty insightful in his postings and stuff. It's a dying thing out there. There are fewer and fewer atheists out there all the time. And I haven't dug into it deep enough to explain it, but I do know that in my youth as a Christian, when I first became a Christian, there were guys, I believe the one guy's last name was Carpenter, who grew up non-religious. Matter of fact, he's claimed to be a devout atheist. And and this is what happens sometimes when these atheists do this. He wanted to go through the Bible, read it objectively, and try to disprove the Bible. But when he got down to the end of the book of Revelation, something happened to him. He wasn't dissuaded from his beliefs. He was dissuaded from his beliefs and persuaded by the gospel, and he became a Christian. He became a member of the Church of Christ. So he couldn't hold on to his beliefs after he objectively read the Bible. And I honestly, I've asked people who were atheists, have you read the Bible? Objectively read the Bible? No, haven't. Don't believe in God, so why should I read the Bible? Again, how do you base your opinion and formulate an ideology that you live your life by, denouncing something, and you haven't even read it? Especially with Christianity, God, and the Bible. All right, the last article, I know I'm going a little long in this one. Well, I got a couple more that I'm not going to go over, but thanks, Obama. Former president credits himself for a strong economy. The economy was still tanking up until January 20th, was it this year, for the inauguration of President Trump. And matter of fact, it was starting to come up after he was elected. It started to take a significant turn right after he was elected. And there's nothing in the economy that pointed to whatever Obama was doing was going to bring this country out of a recession, because he had 8 years to do it and didn't do it. Right? And I know some people say, well, technically we were out of recession. No. Not with the unemployment rate to where it was and the stock market where it was. I mean, we've been hitting new heights on the stock market ever since Donald Trump was elected over a year ago, November 8th. So, I like how President Obama just almost trashed our whole economy, and within less than a year, Donald Trump just being president. And this is the other thing that the lamestream media isn't reporting, how many regulations under the table that President Trump's actually getting rid of, especially some of the unconstitutional executive orders that President Obama had signed into law. And I got into a discussion with a comment I left on a posting months ago on Common Cause, where she accused me of not reading past my Second Amendment. Well, presidents can write executive orders all they want. Read the Constitution. I said, absolutely they can. But they cannot legislate. They cannot create law with their executive orders. And that's what President Barack Obama was doing. And I told her, I said, she accused me of not reading past the Second Amendment. I said, maybe you need to read the Constitution past the welfare clause and the preamble to understand and know what the Constitution is. Not hard to understand and to know. And the final story of the day, and I talked about this in my monologue here, about millennials get it wrong about socialism. And what they get wrong about socialism, they're not being told the truth about socialism. And this was written by Benjamin Powell and posted December 6th of this year over at Foundation for Economic Education, FEE.org. Last month's 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution is an appropriate occasion to remind us that human atrocities committed by communist regimes, but we also should take time to reflect on the progress that has occurred since the fall of the Soviet Union and its socialist economic system in 1991. The recent poll of millennials found that 51% of them identified socialism as their favored socioeconomic system, with an additional 7% identifying communism as their favored system. Only 42% favored capitalism. Socialism kills always. Always kills. A socialist system naturally selects leaders willing to exercise coercion to see that the plans are carried out. Most millennials I've met, and I met quite a few as a college professor, are nice enough people. Most have no desire to see their fellow humans suffer, so I'm left to conclude that they have no appreciation for how socialism actually works in the real world. Socialist regimes, through executions, intentional starvation, and brutal prison work camps, killed more than 100 million of their own citizens in the 20th century. In places such as Cuba, North Korea, and Venezuela, the atrocities continue. Such atrocities are no accident. The nature of a centrally planned economy reduces humans to labor inputs who must be coerced to perform a part of someone else's economic plan. If people are permitted to make their own choices, no economic plan is possible. A socialist system naturally selects leaders willing to exercise coercion to see that the plans are carried out. In other words, they're electing people that don't mind getting their hands dirty. All right? The economic track record of socialism is as dismal as the human rights record. But we need to direct millennials to history books to see it. They need only look at what has happened to former socialist countries during their own lifetimes, and these countries have moved away from socialism towards capitalism. Economic freedom leads to better outcomes. And I'm not going to read the whole article, I'm getting long in the show here, but this is factually true, that economic freedom leads to better outcomes. And this is true whether we're talking about net neutrality and the internet, or whether we're talking about the whole economy of the whole country. It's these economic freedoms contribute. Capitalism is the only economic system in the history of the world that has raised more people out of poverty than any other system you can think of. Any other system. And it amazes me, folks. It really does amaze me how little history the last generation or last couple generations that are come up behind me know about the world. And this is, they look at socialism, they see guys like Bernie Sanders, oh, we're going to give you all these things. Oh, that's great. The government's going to give us these things. We don't have to pay for school. We don't have to pay for our cell phones. We don't have to pay for our internet. We don't have to pay for anything. And that's just, somebody pays for it, just not them. And politicians use that to buy their votes. They lie to their constituents to buy their votes. Bernie Sanders was a master at that. At lying and make it sounding good. Hillary Clinton is a pathological liar. And I still can't believe the popularity she has. I still can't believe I still can't believe that some people think if they impeach President Trump, she'll become president. There are a handful of people out there that still believe that, folks. They really, really do. So, again, it amazes me how little history that the millennials actually have going on for them out there. Well, folks, that's the end of the show. You hear the music coming up in the background there. I appreciate your indulgence with me. I do apologize for not having so many shows. I'll get things all caught up today and tomorrow on Patreon, my show notes page at danclemenshow.com and everything like that. And tomorrow and Wednesday, I'm not sure if we're going to start talking about net neutrality tomorrow or wait till Wednesday, but we'll get her figured out. Maybe half the show tomorrow we'll start getting more into net neutrality and some more research I've found in that. So this has been the Dan Clemens Show. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Remember to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification button so when I have new videos up, you're aware of that. And plus, I'm also seeking donations through Patreon and also through PayPal to help support the show and help me to grow this show. So have a great rest of the day and God bless. And we'll see you guys all tomorrow at noon, and it's definitely tomorrow at noon.